Hi, I'm Dr. Paul. This is Live on Purpose TV. Live on Purpose Radio has been my podcast for over 10 years now. Today at Live on Purpose TV, how to start a podcast. Because you're here at this particular episode of Live on Purpose TV, it probably means that you're interested in podcasting. How do you start a podcast? And what qualifies Dr. Paul to even talk about that? I have been podcasting since 2007. At the recording of this particular episode, it's 2017. I just hit my 10-year anniversary for my podcast, Live on Purpose Radio. That was before podcasting was even a thing. And just to tell you where I was coming from, I'd been anchoring one day of a 5-day program on Live Talk Radio here in Salt Lake City, where I interviewed people, and I loved it. It was so much fun for me to show up at the recording studio, and I'd have my guests there, and we'd both be on the mics, and we'd be talking about interesting things, and then the programming changed. I found out about it on my way to the office. I was listening to the program on the radio, and I heard the announcement for the programming change, and I realized starting this week, I am no longer on the air. And I had developed such a passion for that didn't sit very well with me. Well, a friend of mine approached me and says, well, Dr. Paul, you oughta try podcasting. And I'm like, what casting? Podcasting, what is that? He explained to me that it's on-demand content that's distributed through the internet. Now remember, this was 10 years ago. And it really wasn't a thing back then. It was just barely getting started. So I learned a little bit more about it. I wasn't sure that it would ever really take off or do anything. But it was an opportunity for me to continue doing what I love. What is it that you love? What is it that you love that has you thinking, oh, I should do some podcasting? If it's not something that you love, then you're probably on the wrong track. I would not do this to make money or to gain fans, although those things can happen. Content is king. Let me say that again. Content is king. And that means you've got to have something to talk about that is worth people signing into. Content is king. That's going to be driven by what you are passionate about. So make sure that you're coming from that kind of a space. How do you start a podcast? You simply get started. It used to be, back in the day, the only way you could have a show of any kind is through the major broadcasting outlets, through radio and television. And there were a few people who controlled the distribution of that content. That is no longer the case. In fact, anyone with access to a computer or a smartphone can create content and distribute it to the world. So podcasting specifically is typically content that's delivered in an audio format, so people listen to it. It's more like radio than television, although I guess technically there are video podcasts as well. But traditionally it's an audio format for content that's created by anyone who has a passion about something or knowledge in a particular area. So one of the first things to consider as you decide if you want to get into podcasting, who is my audience? And if your answer to that is, well, everybody is my audience, then you don't have an audience. You got to be more specific than that. Trying to please everyone is a sure recipe for disaster, okay, failure. There's no way you can do that. I like the way Seth Godin put this. He wrote a book called Tribes. And in his book, Tribes, he described that there are tribes of people out there in the world, and that you have a tribe. Think about that for a minute. If you have a tribe, that makes you the chief. Awesome. Basically, a podcast is your way of showing up and leading your tribe as the chief of that tribe. So don't get your head all big and thinking that you're that important. I mean, to be the chief of this tribe just means that you're the one who is going to create the content and deliver it to them that they're looking for. If you don't do it, who will? That's why this is important. So who is your tribe? Who are those people who are looking for what you have to offer? And when we hit our sweet spot, we're doing what we love for those who love what we do. That's a nice combination. Consider, who is my tribe? Who is my audience? And start narrowing it down, because it's not everyone. My audience is people who are interested in personal development and positive psychology. Not everybody is, if you can imagine, right? But that is my tribe. That is my audience. Those are the people who will resonate with and receive my podcast gratefully. They're the ones who will want to share it. They're the ones who are going to subscribe and keep listening to the episodes as I put them out week after week. Okay, another question that's going to become obvious. What do I need? What kind of equipment do I need? Honestly, you can do podcasting with as little as a smartphone or a microphone that can record your audio content. Most computers have microphones and cameras built into them. Really, equipment is not the issue anymore. And you can go high end and get some really quality equipment. When I started my podcast, you can see my system here. This is an old system. It's the one I've been using for the last 10 years that I've been podcasting. And I bought some nice dynamic microphones. I've got a dedicated iMac for the computer support on that. I've got a nice mixing board and condensers and all kinds of stuff that I put into it. You don't have to do all of that. As long as you've got a microphone, a way of recording your voice in a digital format, you can create a podcast. You also need to have some kind of a platform from which that podcast will be received. So for me, I use Libsyn, Libsyn.com. It's a podcast platform, basically. I upload my files to Libsyn, and that's what we use to distribute it out to my subscription lists. So you're going to need to have something. A little bit of research. You can find several services out there. Like I said, I use Libsyn. There's others available. I also created a blog site where I post the articles and the content and the images, and then I link the audio file to that from Libsyn. You don't have to do it that way. You can publish right from Libsyn or these other platforms that are available. So that's something to think about and maybe do a little bit of research on. What are the platforms that I could use to launch this from so that I have a place to put my files and people can access them? One of the next things that you'll want to think about is, what is my structure and my schedule? One of the things that will kill a podcast faster than anything is something that in the industry we call pod fading. And that's when there's several episodes coming out and then nothing. It goes quiet. It's like crickets. People will unsubscribe, they'll lose interest, they'll drop off. So you want to have some level of consistency. What is the right frequency for you and for your content? Give that a little bit of thought. There are successful podcasts out there who are putting out an episode about once a month. There are successful podcasts that are out there every week or every day. How much do you want to do? And what will be the length and format? When I started podcasting, I was doing a full hour show, and I was basically modeling it after my experience on talk radio. So we would do a half hour, have a little halftime break, come back with the second hour, and had commercial breaks at each of the 15-minute increments. That's how we structured it on live talk radio. So I did that for a while. I got some feedback from my audience. Remember, who's your audience? These are the people that you're serving. I got feedback from my audience that they wanted to listen to these episodes while they were exercising, and that a half hour would suit them better than the hour did. So that way they can listen to a whole episode while they're doing their workout. They don't have to come back to it and continue it tomorrow. A half hour seemed to work better for my audience, so I've gone to a half hour format. Now, I know podcasts that are 3 or 4 minutes in length, and it's a daily kind of a thing. 10 minutes is a fairly common duration. But you find out for yourself what's best suited for my audience and the kind of content that I want to deliver. Daily tips, for example, could be delivered very quickly, whereas development of a topic or an interview like what I do can take a little bit longer. So think through the schedule and the timing and the format of what it is that you want to do. So now you have it, how to start a podcast. If you'd like to listen to mine, that's Live on Purpose Radio. There's a .com for that, and there's a link in the description.